Welcome to Mindset Monday on the new Piano Ninja Tricks podcast. A lot of M's today. We are talking about going from mindless to mindful practicing. Before we get there, just a quick notification that we just closed the doors to the Piano Ninja Tricksters Club. Can't wait to help these new members learn twice as much in half the time. If you missed it, join the wait list where you're also be getting free piano ninja tricks starting with fingering, and you can do that at pianoninjatricks.com. So let's talk about from mindless to mindful practicing. Sounds good, but how do we do that? We all want to be practicing mindfully all the time, and that's a bit of a challenge, but it is possible. So here are some tips that will help you. One is a really common basic one, but sometimes it might be the most challenging because it's part of our daily life. Technology. Put your devices on airplane mode when you're practicing. So important. Nothing ruins a good practice session more than the beep, the text message notification, whatever it is, the phone ringing even. Put your device on airplane mode and do not disturb when you're practicing. You might be using your device for your iPad or your tablet for reading music. You might be using your phone for your metronome app, but they still can be on airplane mode. It really helps. For me personally, what's really helped me is getting to the piano first thing in the morning before technology, before I checked email, before I've checked any messages, before I have anything to do that occupies space in my brain. I know that I will have not only a better practice session, a more focused, mindful practice session, but I'll set up my day for success. I can't honestly say I always do that, but I can honestly say it's always my goal. And I go through weeks where I do that, and then things come up and I break that routine, and then I just get back on the horse and start doing it again, because I know piano to me is so much more enjoyable when my brain is clear. It's one of the reasons I just love playing Bach in the morning. I can't even explain it, but it just feels like Bach just clears my brain and also opens up my heart. But also it's just something about the nothing is in my brain, and putting Bach in feels like it keeps it very clean. Hard to put into words, but I don't know if you've also had that same experience. And in episode 2, the first Monday, I talked about opening your heart when you warm up the piano. That's also something that I don't actually warm up with scales and churning. I do all those things, but I don't do it until I've warmed up my heart before I focus on warming up my fingers. So that also really has helped me significantly with starting my practice sessions with being very mindful. And we'll talk more later about listening, because listening is a huge part of being mindful. I was reading about research by a man named B.J. Zimmerman on creating mindful practice habits to develop a skill or a sport. So this is research that's not based around piano, but it was based around sports, and specifically basketball. And what he found is that the basketball players were more successful at getting the shot into the hoop consistently over and over when they practice it as a very specific intention. And when they're actually practicing that intention. So when they're practicing getting in the hoop over and over, that's all they're practicing. They're not practicing getting to the hoop and running down the court or whatever you need to get there. I don't know much about basketball, but they only practice over and over that shot. So if we relate that to piano, we want to be very specific. In a previous episode, I think it was episode 3, I talked about quick reflex motion. It's one of my core basic piano ninja tricks. It's how to accurately leap between keys and use it. Your feeling in your body is such an accurate measure that it is as consistent as taking out a ruler and measuring it. So if we're applying, if let's say we're leaping on the piano, which we always do, and we are applying quick reflex motion, intentional, mindful practicing is setting the intention of a very specific leap from this note to this note, from that chord to that chord, from this octave to that octave, using one piano ninja trick at a time, and in this case, quick reflex motion. A vague goal would be, I'm going to be more accurate in my leaps. Well, what is more accurate? Is more accurate than yesterday? More accurate than a month ago? More accurate than the last time I performed this? More accurate than 6 months ago? It's very vague. How much is more? Is it 100% more? Is 90% okay? How about 60%? So when you define it as a very intentional, specific goal, I'm going to get from this chord to this chord, using quick reflex motion, practicing that intention, research shows you will be more accurate and more mindful about it because you're actually developing a habit. I read a fabulous book when it came out by James Clear called Atomic Habits, and so many, oh my, just priceless, so many good tips on creating atomic habits in your life. And one of the things he said is that the research shows that it takes 21 days to form a habit, but it doesn't take 21 consecutive days. And I don't ever recommend any pianist practices 21 consecutive days. I always advise you to take a day off a week. It's good for your brain, it's good for your fingers, it's good for your soul, it's good for everything. So 21 days to form a habit. So when I'm teaching these piano ninja tricks to my members in the Piano Ninja Tricksters Club, one of the things I always say is, it's so tempting. You join and you see this beautiful hub and there's all these piano ninja tricks and they're divided into stages of progression. But it's so easy to like, oh, I want to do this. And then I'll do quick flex motion. I'll do cyclical rhythm. And then I'll add this piano ninja trick. And then they stack them and they have slow progress. But when you really do one at a time, what you're doing is you're setting an intention that's mindful practicing, that you are applying one piano ninja trick. And let's say it's quick reflex motion, mentioned in episode 3, and it takes 21 days. So when you have that 21 days, then you get to a point where you're not thinking about it anymore. It just happens. It becomes a habit. So when you then go to apply another one that I'll teach you, you learn cyclical rhythm and you learn quick reflex motion, and I'm going to add another, but it's not till you have the others that they become part of you and that becomes part of your mindful practice. I will tell you often, if I've had to summarize the piano ninja tricks into one word, the word is intention. That's why I love this subject of from mindless to mindful practicing. Because when you're applying the piano ninja tricks, it's impossible to be mindless. You are focusing on one thing so specific that you have to be mindful. And it's a great habit to develop. Listen, as pianists, it's unlike other instruments. If we were playing violin, cello, a string instrument, a wind instrument, timpani, we have to always be adjusting our ears to our intonation, because that's what determines whether our notes are correct. We get the piano tuned by a professional tuner. We don't need to do that. So it's really easy, unfortunately, to go into mindless practicing, which you never want to do. So you want to create habits. I do it with the Piano Ninja tricks so that it forces me to be mindful and intentional. And you know what else it forces me to be mindful and intentional? Inspire. I don't want to say forces. I'm going to say inspires me. Listening. When you listen, when you're deeply listening to the music that you are creating and playing, it's almost impossible to not be present and to not be intentional. So when you're deeply listening, it transitions you into mindful practicing. So one of the pieces that I go through phases and I do different music at different times, but at this phase, and it's this phase has lasted a while. It's been a couple months now. The piece that just forces me to, inspires me to listen, and just immediately puts me present and immediately puts me into mindful practicing. I've actually never played the whole piece. I'm going to at some point in my life. It is the Schumann Carnival, but it is the Chopin movement. It is just the most angelic, beautiful melody. So I will play a little bit of that for you now, and we'll put me into a mindful state, and hopefully you as well. Every single time that inspires me to be mindful. I hope that helps you with your practicing so that all your practice sessions go from mindless, which you're going to leave behind now, and you're going to go to mindful, intentional practicing. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Lisa Spector, your piano ninja. And it's back to the piano for me now.